Hello there. Welcome back to Mondays with Megan. This is, as our tradition is shaping up to be, the last Monday will be our a focus on a word or a phrase that seems to come up a lot in the woke ideology or the radical left. So, this is not exclusive to the radical left. Other people can use this word, but I want to focus on the radical leftist use of it and how I was trained to use this word. Um, as in these videos, so that we can start to piece together how to talk to radical leftists, because you've probably heard that the dictionary is being rewritten. People are rewriting, redefining words left and right, and not being forthcoming about it. Either they think that they really think that this is actually what the word has always meant, or that this is what the word should mean now. Some people do know what they're doing, but the not disclosing that, oh yeah, this is the way I'm using this word, is one of the ways that um, the radical leftists have infiltrated most aspects of society at this point, and very quickly, because they are relying on, whether wittingly or unwittingly, the confusion of people who are not privy to their special information about how they're using words, and so they are essentially bamboozling people who are used to traditional definitions of words. And we've already covered a few in January and February, and today I want to talk about this word, authenticity. Of course, this is not just this is not just used on the radical left. Everybody uses this word, of course. That's kind of the problem, though. And I think that this is just how I was trained to use this word in the radical left ideology. I'm pretty sure that other people think this as well. But one of the things that I was taught when I was on the left was that the thing that authenticity means isn't just being yourself, not just being true to yourself, which there are actually problematic things about that as well. But it's actually being authentic is sort of an excuse to act however you want and to indulge your feelings. That the radical leftists are that is one of the tenets of that ideology, is that we worship feelings because the self is supreme. So authenticity often ends up meaning that people can fly off the handle, people can blow up at others, people can treat people really badly because their authentic reaction to something someone said or did or didn't say or didn't do um, was initially anger or rage. And it doesn't matter if it was based on a misinterpretation. It doesn't matter whether that person had a calm conversation beforehand to kind of figure out where the other person was coming from. So it's just this like carte blanche permission to act in pretty relationship damaging ways. And it also spills into all of these other catastrophic catastrophic consequences for relationships. So the claim that, oh, I was just being authentic, or I have to be my true self, can result in things like cutting off relationships willy-nilly or abruptly without explanation, because well, they can't handle my true self. It's a little bit like you probably have experienced this in a relationship or a friendship where someone says something pretty hurtful to you, and you express that hurt, and they say, well, I was just being honest. That actually has ruined a friendship of mine. I tried to bring something that this person said to me to them, and said, hey, I would like to work this out. This was particularly painful. And I was trying to do it in a Matthew 18 sort of way in scripture. If you're not familiar with that, it's when someone has wronged you, or there's an issue with someone, you initially go to that person just one-on-one, if it's appropriate to do so, and bring the offense to them to work it out, so that there's no root of bitterness. Then if that person doesn't receive you, meaning they don't listen, or they deny, or it's just not going to work out with that one person, then you bring someone else with you, an appropriate person, and try to work it out with that third party. And if they still don't receive you, then you bring in someone of higher authority. And in this case, since we're talking about the Bible, it would probably be a pastor or some elder in the church. And if they still don't receive you, then you treat them as an unbeliever. which is harsh, right? But I think we all know that the Bible has harsh sayings in it by now. So I was trying to do this with someone who's been my friend for was my friend for a very, 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 very long time, and I attribute a lot of my growth and spiritual development to this person. And they said something really painful, and I didn't think necessary to say to me. Sometimes people have to say things, right, that are not the best. They don't feel that great, but it's sort of that tough love kind of thing. This was not, in my estimation, one of those situations. And so I brought it to this person, and I'd said, this thing that you said was particularly painful, and I kind of want to work this out. I don't really see a need for why this was said, and this person did not receive it at all, and was just like, well, no, if I hadn't said this, I would have exploded. And I said, okay, but that sort of sounds like in my head, that sounds like a you problem. I'm not sure why I needed to be offloaded onto like that. So, and that, I think that was kind of one of the beginnings of the end of the relationship there. And so I don't know, but what that whole, well, if I hadn't said this, I would have exploded. I needed to be true to myself. That kind of thing is, it's gotten to the point where it's damaging relationships. And I would say that we'll talk about self-care probably next month. But damaging relationships is not good self-care. And I've done my fair share of that. So I'm not trying to call out other people without looking at the log in my own eye. But I think saying things like, well, I needed to say this really harmful, damaging thing to you so that I could be true to myself, I don't think flies scripturally. And I'm not trying to Bible thump anyone. I'm just saying that this proliferation of the use of "I'm just being authentic" or "my authenticity" caused me to do this, and therefore I'm not even sorry for when I've hurt people that I claim to love has reached a very malignant level in our society. So when you're attempting to talk to a radical leftist or someone in the woke agenda who subscribes to that, and you should remember in the background what they have running in their head is, how can I be authentic to myself? And that is first and foremost. I say we, like I'm still there, the woke cult has trained people to sort of claim themselves first above all else. And I think people who are familiar with scripture would know that is pretty much the opposite message of what the church and what Christianity teaches, what Jesus taught. And it's quite sad to see the church actually going in that direction as well. So yeah, we're going to talk about self-care and self-love in another video. But the main point of that is, when you're attempting to maybe work out an offense or work out something painful between you and someone on the radical left, you need to keep in mind that they have been trained that they need to be put number one. It's a matter of safety for them to put themselves first, because they will cite previous and historic oppression as reasons for needing to put themselves first now, especially if they're women who are also minorities. So, and this is the thing, and it's, again, I'm not saying that you should always sacrifice yourself at the expense of yourself serving others, although that's actually a lot of what scripture says, I think, but that's for another video. So how do you approach someone who has that ideology? Well, I would know how people have approached me when I was in that ideology and saying, well, I need to put myself first, and it's for survival, it's for health, it's not selfishness. It's not selfish to put yourself first, is kind of how that was going. And I would use the excuse of, well, I just need to be authentic, and I can't be fake just to have relationships. Well, you don't have to subscribe to that ideology, because it's not true. The opposite of authenticity is not fakeness, actually. There are such things as manners, and there are such things as being polite. And sometimes, a lot of the time, actually, accommodation is appropriate. Especially if your nature is to hammer people over the head with the truth all the time, which is, ask me how I know how well that works. So there are lots of times, quite a lot of times actually, where you are going to do something that's going to feel inauthentic, because what you've attached authenticity to is your feelings. And in the woke ideology, feelings are king. So they're not going to do anything against their feelings, because that is the supreme that's the altar at which they are worshiping. So that, I think, gives us a clue into one of the ways we can speak to radical leftists, that we know in their mind that they would find doing anything against their immediate feeling in the moment as toxic or self-betrayal or oppressive. So how do you relate to that? Well, you don't need to give in to, their demands for an apology when you didn't actually do anything wrong, or affirming that their feelings are actually accurate. But you can put your speech in feeling terms. I see that you're feeling this way. That doesn't mean that you agree with it. It doesn't mean that you think that's right. You just are making an observation that, like, oh, I see that this is really upsetting you. Oh, I see that you feel X, Y, and Z. Is that correct? And then once you've centered the conversation on emotions, then you can, that does tend to calm things down a little bit. You are not going to talk them out of their feelings, and you're not going to talk them out of the fact that they believe that all feelings are valid, which is problematic for the reasons we talked about last week. But what you can say then is you can say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Would you be interested in hearing how I feel? And you should ask the question, because it will push them back on their heels a little bit. And they will have to admit to themselves that they're probably not actually interested in your feelings, but it's kind of a crappy thing to say. No, I don't care about your feelings, right? So you are in a way setting them up to do a little bit of self-reflection. Now, if they say, yes, I'm interested in your feelings, then you can just say, well, when you repeat whatever the offense was, when you did X, I felt Y. And then if they, argue or defend or whatever, you can kind of point out the double standard or the hypocrisy. Now, people on the radical left don't typically respond to facts. They do respond to justice. And so you can kind of couch it in those terms, like, well, wait, now you were wanting attention and validation for your feelings, and now don't you think that is deserved on the other side as well? So this isn't always going to go well, though. I mean, I would have said there are times where that worked with me when I was on the radical left, and there were times when it didn't. And it was very identity based. It was very, well, oh, you're a white man, therefore justice is actually you shut up and I tell you what to say and do. But then I'm going to turn around and say there's no good men in the world, right? So I don't know that everybody will wake up to the massive contradiction and self-serving hypocrisy that's going on. But if you keep pointing it out, but also stay in relationship, like if it's appropriate to do so, because I have found that it is actually more effective to not be the one to end relationship, to not be the one until, and there's obviously a lot of qualifications that go along here, but to say, I'm here and I'm actually willing to work this out. This is important enough to me, because people on the left, on the far left, are living in echo chambers, and they don't get a lot of pushback. They don't get a lot of, well, now wait a minute. They don't get a lot of questions. They don't get a lot of challenge. So if you stay in relationship with them, they're the ones that are going to have to cut you off. They will. That's kind of a thing that we were trained to do. But if you continue to ask questions and point out the contradictions, especially in terms of feelings, like, well, hey, that doesn't feel fair. That doesn't feel just. And I'm not saying make up a feeling, right? Don't lie about your feelings. But when you couch it in feeling language, everybody has feelings and we shouldn't deny them. But when you offer that yourself, oh, well, this is how I felt when this happened. And then you can kind of point out the hypocrisy when they respond in a sort of shut down, blamey, oh, well, this is oppressive kind of way. And you can say, well, now, wait a minute. Exactly why is it that, you get to be authentic, but I don't? So, and this is not going to solve all the problems, right? We've really mired ourselves in this pretty dangerous ideology here. But if you keep in mind that their focus in general, and they may not even realize it. I didn't even realize it. I was just trained. This is how I was trained, that I have to focus on myself as a matter of survival because there's so much oppression out there that I could run into at any moment and am even now experiencing, even though I'm not conscious of it. That's what all of the, never forget land acknowledgement, labor acknowledgement at every single thing all the time is about. It's about keeping you trauma bonded to your triggers so that you will continue to, even as you push for socialism, work to get everybody to validate and agree with you and validate your feelings. So this whole authenticity thing, first of all, it's pretty overblown at this point. That's definitely a buzzword. And second of all, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Honestly, there are times when you need to behave, and you cannot act on what you feel. Acting on what you feel isn't, that's also not, why is that the definition of authenticity? Why are we going towards feelings? Shouldn't we say, I'm acting in accordance with my values? If I value loving and honoring people as people, regardless of skin color or race, gender, any of that, then I might do things that go against my feeling, because my feeling in the moment might be offense, it might be anger, it might be fear. But my values are love, honor, respect, those kinds of things. And so if I act in accordance with my feelings, how is that authentic? Feelings change at the drop of a hat. Values, if they're your true values, won't. So that is what I'm deciding to define authenticity as. And that does not include always acting upon my feelings. And no, I don't feel oppressed when I have to behave and be polite to someone who is difficult to love. I'm that person in a lot of people's lives. I'm the person who's difficult to love. Do I want them to constantly be acting authentically around me if their authenticity is, well, I just want to insult you and I just want to yell at you and no, I don't want that. So I think a higher, better definition of authenticity is I'm going to act in accordance with my values, even when I don't feel like it. And if there are radical leftists who are open to that kind of conversation, that might be something that's helpful. Right now, we are very much stuck in an adolescent phase of this whole thing where impulse control is at an all-time low, and feelings are what's kind of the supreme compass for the time being. I think this is a phase, and I think it is starting to break, but it is because people are pointing out, even though they don't really respond to facts yet, because feelings are facts. And I realize this is going to be really offensive. I've actually I've attempted to talk to several people on the left, and of course, their immediate reaction is rage. So hard to say that doesn't prove my point, but it will be difficult to have these conversations. So we're going to continue on next week, which is already April. Unbelievable. Q2, as it were, in the business and nonprofit industrial complex. So next week, I have a few topics I'm still kicking around. But thanks for joining me this week for Mondays with Megan, and we will see you next week. Okay, bye.